Deputy President. Until 2 weeks ago, waking up to the sad news of the passing of Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, she was the only monarch I had ever known and ever lived under. Coming from the Hunter, an area largely occupied by descendants of British citizens who came to mine and are generally socially conservative, it was felt, almost hoped, she would reign forever. Indeed, amongst the Hunter's strong Welsh community, that includes my wife, a sense of pride exists of Her Majesty's choice of pet, with corgis coming from Wales, and indeed the name originating from the Welsh words cor and chi, meaning dwarf and dog. Her Majesty was a constant, a stable point in the world of turbulence, whose actions, or indeed sometimes planned lack of them, gave an example of what the definition of servant leadership should be. There are many stories of her time and service being given in this place today, and so I thought I would use my time to talk about her involvement in my region, my home, and some small stories. Her Majesty visited the Hunter 4 times during her reign, starting with stepping off the train with the Duke of Edinburgh at Newcastle Railway Station in February 1954. With an estimated 300,000 people from around the region seeing on that trip, which is amazing, seeing the Hunter only had a population of 147,000. Their trip included my mother and father taking part of the 44,000 school children taken to the showgrounds to see her. Indeed, my father has just told me this morning that he picked some grass that the Royal Land Rover had driven across as a keepsake. She came back in 1970, 1977 and finally 1988 as part of the bicentennial tour. In those visits, she encapsulated so much now that is important to the Hunter. She opened the first stage of the International Sports Centre, now known as McDonald Jones Stadium, home to the Newcastle Jets and Newcastle Knights. She visited the now lost industries of the BHP steel plant, the State Dockyard, and had the Royal Motor Yacht Britannia moored in our port of Newcastle. She opened the Newcastle Region Art Gallery, the Regional Museum, and more importantly, some might say, the Queen's Wharf development, now home to the Queen's Wharf Brewery, the starting place for many a night out. But it is a visit she never made to the area that shows the care she had for my home region in the Hunter. Our former Lord Mayor of Newcastle, Mr John McNaughton, often catches up with his neighbour, Adrian Roach, who works in my office, and he's told him over the back fence many proud stories of his two royal interactions. Mr McNaughton famously made the papers recently for his story about tearing his pants open on the bumper of his mayoral car whilst entertaining the Queen in 1988. But this story of his second interaction has been kept quiet. After the 1989 earthquake, the Queen sent a son, Prince Edward, to look at the damage and the opportunities for reconstruction in the town. He visited the town, the hospital, spoke to survivors and relatives of those lost. It was appreciated at the time as a show of support, and he was to return home with a briefing for Her Majesty. 2 years later, at the opening of New South Wales' 50th Parliament by Her Majesty, she saw the Newcastle Mayor across the room, and she made her way to him, through the crowd, singling him out, greeting him warmly, and then discussing the damage and the reconstruction of Newcastle in astonishing detail. This shows that her actions at the time were not for show, but they were for real. Her care for her subjects in the Hunter was such that 2 years after the incident, her knowledge and understanding were still fresh. Just as she meant something to us, we meant something to her. To Her Majesty, thank you for your service. To her family, my feelings are with you, and thank you for sharing your mum, your grandmother, your great-grandmother with the people of the Hunter and the people of Australia. May she rest now in peace, with the knowledge that she leaves this earth a better place for having been our Queen. Long live the King.